Okay, England versus the Netherlands at the Women's Euros. Probably the most crucial game of Serena Wiegmann's time as England women's manager. She coached the Netherlands to Euros victory. She's coached England to Euros victory and back-to-back Euros. But this has got to be her most crucial game as the women's manager. And considering the fallout from the 2-1 defeat to France in the first round of group stage matches, there needed to be a response. And there was a response. It was a 4-0 response. It could have been 5. Rousseau's had a goal ruled out for offside, and that is a debatable one. We've seen them given, and we've seen them not given, and it's a 50-50. I don't know what Rousseau has to do to actually get a goal to stand. That's 2 goals she's had ruled out. But from the very first whistle, the energy levels were different. The intensity levels were different. And this was a response that was required. Had they lost this game, a lot of questions would have been asked, not only of the coach but of the players. And the players were rightly criticised in the media and by the pundits, and the fans weren't happy. This was a response. Now, the only other game I think I've ever watched, ever, in both men's and women's, was in Euro 96, England-Holland in Euro 96 in the group stages. Very similar game. England, it's 29 years apart, but just there was something about the England performance today that reminded me of that game. The first goal is actually created by the goalkeeper Hannah Hampton, and that is a brilliant 75 metre pass, low, hard. The trajectory is like a bullet to Rousseau. Takes the ball, and then Lauren James on the cutback. That is a fantastic finish. That involves 3 players. The pass itself just cuts out the midfield and takes the Dutch midfield out of it. But then you look at the support players. So not only is it Rousseau and James, but there's other players coming in support as well. So if Lauren James doesn't take the shot, there are other players nearby where that attack phase could continue. That was on 22 minutes, and for the first 20 minutes, England were controlling the tempo of the game. Their energy levels were far improved from that game against France. It's almost like that game against France didn't take place, and it was 22 minutes of domination at this point. The Dutch Miedemar's barely got in the game. None of the Dutch players are really playing well. Misplaced passes, no energy. They're second best at the 50-50s. They're under pressure defensively when they're trying to clear their lines. They're turning the ball over. When England turned the ball over, the concern was that they would have a similar issues like they did against France, where they would be vulnerable at the back. That didn't pan out. And that goal summed up that first 20-odd so minutes. But it took until the stroke of half-time for England to get the second. And then that was the concern that I think I had, was that they wouldn't get that second and that the Dutch would respond at some point. They would get Miedemar into the game, and that there would be a response. Georgia Stanway's goal, it comes from a free kick. They lump the ball into the box. The Dutch don't really clear it very well. It pings around a little bit, and then Georgia Stanway, that is probably a better finish than Lauren James. That is a bullet of a finish. Low and hard to the keeper's right. Should the goalkeeper do better? Potentially, but there's a lot of obscured vision there. There's a lot of bodies in the way. Could you do better? Potentially, yes. The goalkeeper could, but that finish itself, it's low. It's low, hard, and just on with pace. It is a daisy cutter, near enough, but it is a good half volley, and that's just natural technique. That's very hard to coach, that kind of technique, and practice. Yeah, obviously people will practice that. Players will practice that, but it's very, very hard to just coach that natural, movement, that connection. That is pure talent there. So it's 2-0 at half time, and I think that second goal did knock the stuffing completely out the Dutch. They made three changes at half time, I think. Or was it 2 changes? They made changes at half time. They changed defensively, they changed in the midfield and up front. It didn't really help. Rousseau's goal ruled out for offside. That's a debatable one. Obviously it doesn't have a massive outcome on the game like against France, but I don't know what she's got to do to get a goal. It's 2 goals in 2 games ruled out for offside. Thankfully, this time the check was very, very quick. I will say that the check this time was very, very quick, which in previous games in this tournament, the Czechs have taken too long with the VAR, which has really disrupted the flow of the game. That didn't take so long. It was quick. It was done, and play continues, which I think aided the tempo of the game and the speed of the game. Lauren James gets her second goal 9 minutes later on 59 minutes. And it's at this point that the Dutch have basically waved the white flag and surrendered. I mean, it could and should have been more, if we're being brutally honest. But again, the Dutch defensively were just all over the place. Absolutely all over the place. They were struggling with the width that England had. They were struggling to stop crosses coming into the box. Over 20 or so, 20, 25, 30 crosses. I mean, I lost count. They couldn't shut down either flank. And balls were just coming into the box. Now, Ella Toone gets her goal on 67 minutes to make it 4-0. Like I said, it could have been 5, it could have been 6, could have been 7. And yeah, the Dutch just never got going. It looked like they'd just given up. And this was one of the most one-sided games. Apart from Spain-Portugal, this is probably the most one-sided game we've seen so far at the tournament, in my opinion. Very one-sided. I mean, did it take about 55 minutes for the Dutch to get their first corner? That in itself just shows their lack of attacking intent. Defensively, they couldn't stop the crosses from wide areas. They were really struggling in those wide channels. They couldn't deal with long balls over the top. They couldn't deal with balls in the channels. They lost the midfield battle. They just had no energy. There was no intensity in their performance, whereas England kept that intensity up for the full 90 minutes. And once it got to 4-0, okay, a bit of the tempo goes out the game and a little bit of intensity goes out the game. The Dutch are sort of trying to, they're scrapping around. The intensity drops a little bit, but England still looked like they could have scored again. That was a response to a really poor performance. So that's a sign of a good side. That, in my opinion, that is a sign of a good side. I still think there's going to be tougher challenges ahead. Now, we don't know what the Dutch and the French are going to cook up in that final game. Goal difference, I think, could prove crucial to the next phase. And we don't know what the French are going to do against Wales later. And what was if the Dutch beat the French? Goal difference is going to be important. So while England have given themselves a real good shot in the arm to get through to that next stage, France are favourites to beat the Welsh and beat the Welsh handsomely. That's no offence to the Welsh team, but they're not on the same level of tournament experience. And what happens if the Dutch beat the French in their final group game and England beat Wales? The goal difference is going to be crucial, and this now puts England in a positive goal differential and the Dutch in a negative goal differential. So because of that head-to-head, that could prove crucial as a tiebreaker. So depending where teams end up, the head-to-head tiebreaker and goal difference is so crucial. So let's say France finished second in the group in English and England third. Because France have beaten England, let's say the goal difference is exactly the same, that's that tiebreaker. If the Dutch were to be on the same amount of points as England at the end of the group stage, this is the tiebreaker if the goal difference is the same. So it is very important that when they do play Wales, they score as many goals as possible. But then again, the Welsh might upset the French. Anything's possible, and that really throws the group wide open. Of course, that's not... it's highly unlikely, but it could happen. So goal difference is going to prove very crucial. We've seen already some teams already go home after 2 games have been played. And as I say again, we still haven't seen a goalless draw. We've still not seen a goal from a direct free kick. And yet another clean sheet for a winning side. So that's another interesting stat. A lot of the teams that have won games with clean sheets. So that's another interesting stat to take. But there we go. England have beaten the Netherlands 4-0. France play Wales in just under an hour's time till kick-off as I'm recording. That's going to be interesting to see how the French perform against the Welsh. Will they back up what they did against England with the same energy, same intensity? And will Wales make things difficult? Can they stick in the game? Can they make it scrappy? It's going to be interesting to see what the Welsh do. We've seen some surprises already at this tournament, so anything can happen. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.